Hello, boys and girls. This is Mrs. Bird here, following up with part 2 of our lesson from today because we ran out of time in both classes, which is, it's okay when, it's a Monday and, we're so engaged with our centers and workstations, so that's fine. So I just wanted to follow up with you to elaborate more on metric length. We talked about in class how last week we studied our customary units for length, volume and capacity, and weight and mass. And so now today we are focused here on the metric. However, I do want you to take out your reference material sheet because we are going to revisit our customary units just briefly so you can remember to do this on the day that you will be taking the STAR test, as this book will be in your, as this sheet will be in your STAR booklet. And I want you to not forget how to read this sheet because this will be the only thing that you'll have as a reference tool and reference material. So really quickly, I want to revisit our customary because I want you to remember that when you are converting your customary units, when you're going from a larger unit to a smaller unit, you need to multiply. So for instance, if I'm going from miles to yard, I'm going to multiply my 1 mile times whatever, how many yards that I'm trying to figure out. So this is going to be your multiplication. And then when you're going from a smaller unit to a larger unit, you're going to have to divide by that unit of measurement. So in this case, if I wanted to do my inches to feet, then I would have to divide by 12. If I wanted to take feet to yards, then I'm going to have to divide by 3. Or divide by 1,760 to figure out how many miles. Okay, so make sure you do that. And the same we found out last week with gallons to quarts, because I'm going from a larger to small, we have to multiply. And then when I'm going to do my smaller unit to a larger unit, then I'm going to have to divide. So if I wanted to figure out how many cups, how many fluid ounces are in a cup, then I'm going to have to divide by 8. Okay, and the same happens again with our weight, going from large to small, multiply, and then going from small to large, we have to divide. Okay, and then the same happens here with our our metric units. So today we're going to focus on our metric units of length only. So if you'll look at our reference sheet, our metric units of length are kilometer, meters, centimeters, and millimeters. Okay. In class, we have discussed that our metric units of length, such as meters, which is the base unit, so that's kind of like the base unit before we're trying to figure out, the millimeter is smaller, the centimeter is a little bit bigger than a millimeter, and then the kilometer is the largest. Well, why do we measure in meters in the metric unit? Is this basically the same as our one giant step? Okay, it's the same as you're taking one giant step. So the length of a giant step is about the size of a meter. And some of the things that we talked about in class that we could measure using meters are some of our larger items, such as the door to the classroom door, the dry erase board, because that's a larger item, a soccer field, that will be a larger item, a table, or the height of a tree. So those are things that we can measure in meters because it's a larger object, and one giant step is a larger object that we could use to measure the distance between one point to another. Millimeter, we said, is about the same as the thickness of a dime. So if you look at a dime from top to bottom, that space in the middle is very, very, very tiny. So some of the things that we said that we could measure in class using millimeters, those tiny little things could be like the zipper on your jacket, the zipper, the height of a fingernail, you know, from the fingernail to your finger, that's very, very small. What about a ladybug? The ladybug's wings, someone said in class. So those smaller items that we could measure with our millimeters. Centimeter is about the same width of your pinky. So if you look at your pinky, from one side to the other is about a centimeter. Okay? And some of those items that we said in class that we could measure using a centimeter could be, I'm looking at the chart. It could be a button or a penny or a push pin, something that's, you know, a little bit bigger than a millimeter, but a centimeter is a little bit bigger, and that would be a more reasonable amount of length of measurement. And then a kilometer, we said, is kind of like a mile, like you're taking a road trip. It goes larger, longer ways to measure. So like measuring how far an airplane has traveled on a runway, or how far you're traveling from one distance or one place to another, or the height of a really, really tall building, someone said earlier as well. So these are the differences in the metric unit of length. So if you look at your sheet, our part 2 was to work on converting and then building our tables in order for us to go back and use as a reference tool. So we see that our unit of measurements are 1 kilometer is the same as 1,000 meters. 1 meter is the same as 100 centimeters. And then 1 centimeter is the same as 10 millimeters. So really quickly, I'm going to write this, and I want you to write the same. So let's say if I wanted to do 1 kilometer to 1,000 meters, okay, if I want to convert my kilometer to meters, of course, I'm going from a larger unit to a smaller unit, so I'm going to have to multiply. So every time you want to change kilometers to meters, you're going to have to multiply. But however, if I wanted to change meters to kilometers, I'm going to have to divide. And we'll talk about that and we'll talk about what that looks like, and I'll show you what it looks like. So in this case, let's say I want to change my kilometers. Okay, it's my box. Okay, let's see. You're going to draw your box here. Okay, and I want to change it to meters. So I know that 1 kilometer, and I'm sorry, this is my rule. 1 kilometer is the same as 1,000 meters. So in this case, my rule is times 1,000, right? So let's say that I have 45 kilometers. I know that 45 times 1,000, okay, in this case, I know that 45 times 1 equals 45, and I have 3 zeros, so I know that 45 kilometers, I'm sorry, let's scratch that out. I know that 45 kilometers is the same as 45,000 meters. Okay? Let's say I have 12 kilometers. Well, times 1,000 okay, is 12,000 meters. So 12 kilometers is the same as 12,000 meters. Don't forget my unit of measurement. Okay, so this is our table for the rule of kilometers to meters. Okay, now the next one would be meters to centimeters. Okay, I'm going to flip the page. So for meters to centimeters, here's meters. Here's my rule, and centimeters. Okay. So if I want to do meters to centimeters, so I have 1 meter is the same as 100 centimeters. So I know if I input 1 and I get out 100, I multiply this number by 100, right? So let's say I have 200 meters. So I'm going to figure out 200 meters is the same as how many centimeters? Okay, well, I know that 2 times 1 is 2. Okay, I'm not going to draw 200 100 times, but however, I know that 2 times 1 is 2, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros, so therefore it's the same as 2,000 centimeters. Okay, let's say I have 14. Okay, well, 14 times 100, I know that 14 times 1 is 14, and I have 2 zeros, so it's 1,400. So 14 meters is the same as 1,400 meters. Okay, so I just showed you so far the rule of how to use kilometers to meters and meters to centimeters by using our table. Okay, and we figured out the rule just by looking at the relationship between 1 and 100, and we looked at the relationship between 1 and 1,000. So the last one is converting our centimeters to millimeters. So here's our centimeters, our rule, and then our millimeters. So in this case, I'm going from a larger unit to a smaller unit, so I'm going to have to multiply. Okay. So the unit of measurement says that there is 1 centimeter for every 10 millimeters. So my rule is times 10. Okay. So let's say if I have 4 centimeters, I know that 4 times 10 equals 40. So 4 centimeters is the same as 40 millimeters. Okay. Let's say I have 50 centimeters. 50 times 10. Well, 5 times 1 is 5, and there are 2 zeros. So 50 centimeters is the same as 500 millimeters. Okay? So, we're going to do a practice one really quickly. Let's convert 20 kilometers to meters. Let's convert our 12 meters to centimeters. Okay, and let's convert 24 centimeters to millimeters. Okay, I know that if I'm going, let's start with 20 kilometers to meters. So looking at my rule table, I know that every time I convert kilometers to meters, I have to multiply times 1,000, right? So I know that 20 times 1,000, okay, if I don't know how to do that off the top of my head, I know that I can do 2 times 1 is 2, and I have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. Okay, 20 kilometers is the same as 20,000 meters. Okay, so because we are going from a larger unit to a smaller unit, if you're going from large to small, then you should have a larger number as your answer, because it's going to take a lot more meters, because it's a smaller unit, to make your kilometers, if that makes sense. Okay, so my rule for converting meters to centimeters is 100. So I have 12 times 100. Okay, I know that 12 times 1 equals 12, and there are 2 zeros. Okay, so my answer is 1,200 centimeters. Okay, again, we're going from large to small, so it's going to take 1,200 centimeters, which is a smaller unit, to make 12 meters. And my last one is 24 centimeters. Okay, and I'm going from centimeters to millimeters, which is a smaller unit. My rule is times 10. So 24 times 10 is 240. Okay, so it's 240 millimeters. And of course, if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them in class. Remember, I am here at 7:30 a.m. every morning, or mostly every morning. So I do want to encourage you to take advantage to ask questions if you do have any misconceptions. That way, during class, we could keep moving forward. And then, of course, if I need to work with you in small group, I can do that as well. So, happy learning.